Okay, again, this is the Bible-based Bible study. I am Deacon Rodney. Remember, a Bible study is no excuse not to be in a church. I encourage you to get into a good Bible believing church. I'm a member of New Faith Baptist Church International. It's located in Madison, that's Matteson, Illinois. The zip is 60443. The pastor there is the Reverend Dr. Trinell D. Felder. He's a dynamic preacher. His wife is also a dynamic preacher. She's Reverend Dr. Alexis L. Felder. Please come and visit us. Now, I was in the process of trying to explain the first chapter of the book of Genesis. And I hope you were able to catch from the first portion of my explanation that this is heaven. Like it or leave it. This is heaven. This is what God created. This is the expanse that God called heaven. And like I told you, men have tried to change this to sky. But their attempt to do that was purely because they didn't recognize this heaven as the same heaven that God lives in. When you think about God and God being in heaven, you have to consider the fact that well, God is in heaven, but He also created a heaven for the people that He created because we were to be in His image. So when you think about it like that, God does live in the heaven above. He lives in the heaven abroad, and He also, according to Christians, He should be living in your heart. So you shouldn't have a problem dealing with the fact that all this is heaven. But go back, reread it, test me on this, test the Bible on this, and it explains that you're in heaven. Also, we should know by now that time is already a day. An evening and in the morning constitute a day. The great lights were set in the heavens to govern the seasons. So time is already ordained. We should know that from the very first chapter of the book of Genesis. Okay, it's all right there in the book. Okay, the expanse is heaven. Some people call it sky. Remember that heaven, if you look the word up, and I encourage you to do this on your own. You should have homework from this study, from any study, but look it up. What does heaven mean? And I was, I tell you that God lives in heaven. I was reading the definition, and it does say, talk about heavenly bodies. It talks about God. It talks about the fact that the sun is in the heaven, the moon is in the heaven. It talks about the fact, the definition says that the clouds are in heaven. Also, birds fly in heaven. You have trees in heaven, and so forth and so on. So, really, when you consider heaven, everything seems to be above man in heaven. Okay. Well, one day I was walking because I walk frequently, and I happened to notice birds flying overhead and birds landing in the trees. I also noticed those same birds would come down out of the trees and sometimes get things on the ground. They would, get things on the ground, claim things on the ground, protect certain things on the ground, and they would also start to hop sometimes from place to place on the ground, and then they would take off and fly. Now, birds fly in heaven. So I went and I looked up the word sky, and I was using a dictionary that was to help me to understand the Bible. So it was I forget the name of it, but when I looked up the word sky, it told me see heaven. So guess what? I'm walking around in a place with the birds, and I'm walking around in a place where I can see the clouds. Sometimes on certain days, the clouds even come down and create something that we call fog, and they are all here in heaven. So I want you to, think about that. Write me, challenge me on this stuff, because your challenges will create a better Bible study. So you got dry land, you got the expanse, you got the seas, and you got some water someplace we haven't reached. You have ordained time. You have ordained days. Okay, God is not restricted by time, and at this time, man was not restricted by time. So now, you have the vegetation. You have the Great Lights, and that was another confusing thing to me because back in verse 2, God talked about the light, and he said light and darkness, but he didn't talk about the great lights, the sun and the moon. But there was light without the sun, okay? And this happens really all over the earth. And some people say, well, in some regions of the earth, you don't have an evening and a morning to constitute a day, because sometimes the evening can be as long as 6 months. But even in those regions, they have what they call a lunar day. In other words, they have sunshine for a short period of time, and then they may have a 22 or 23 hours of darkness. But they still have an evening and a morning, even before the great lights. Okay, and the great lights are just there to supplement what God has already put out here. So now you got all this, and then you have the creation of man. It says, then God said, let us make man in our image, which was interesting also. You know, when God says, let us make man in our image, you say, well, okay, let us. Well, who the heck is God talking to now? Remember the rules. Moses was not a liar. The translators did not lie. Years later, I can't speak for the theologians who called the heaven sky, but I don't think that their intention was to lie as much as it was just that they were confused that this could be happening with all the bad things that happened here. But I hope you were able to learn a couple of things. But let's say, for example, here we are in a place, and a mistake can be just as costly as a lie, in the sense that if this us is, or who is this us? Well, my faith tells me that the us was the Godheads. You had the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So this is the God consortium, and what they did was they decided to make man in the image of God. So man was made in the image of God via, we have a spirit, we have a soul, and we have the breath of God in us. Okay, so those are some of the things you should have learned from chapter 1. God created all this, and we're going to look forward to dealing with chapter 2. Now, chapter 2 is something that's got a whole lot of potential in it as well. But I pray that you are able to get something out of chapter 1, because there is so much in there that you cannot use to move forward if in fact you don't. I mean, think about it. You got people in the New Testament talking about a God. Where did this God come from? What does this God tell you about itself? Now, also, understand, this is a collection of books put together for the sake of many people, so that these people would have an opportunity to come to know God. The sake of many people to come to know God. So there are other books. People tell me about, well, there are Dead Sea Scrolls, and we could really study all those books, and I don't know if they would bring more confusion or if in fact they would clarify things for us, but I would say right here you have enough, because uh, if you didn't know what was here, and you have to concern yourself before you can believe with some books that you haven't read. Now think about it this way: you haven't read these books. So now, if you read these books and you're still confused, maybe you should try and find the Dead Sea Scrolls or what have you. But anyway, I I have a phone ringing in my background. Somebody should really answer that phone. But stop. Okay. 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 So you have enough to study. If we ever get through this whole Bible and you still have a need for proof, well, I'll just see if I can go about seeking out the Dead Sea Scrolls or whatever else. Now, believe me, I get responses. I get responses from people on the Bible. Somebody told me that Moses did not write. Moses did not write the Pentateuch. Moses did not write the first 5 books of the Bible. And okay, so I said, okay. I asked him, if Moses didn't write it, who will it? Can you at least help me if I don't know? And they told me that Moses got this information from hieroglyphia on the walls in Egypt. And I thought about what they were saying, because I was caught off guard. I was saying, well, Moses is actually writing about things that occurred potentially millions of years before he lived. Potentially millions of years before he even lived. So where did he get this from? Couple of things. He could have gotten it from God, but if these people can tell me they got it from hieroglyphia, and I thought about it. Guess what? I remember that cartoon too. It was called The Prince of Egypt. The Prince of Egypt. So, I mean, it was a good cartoon. It was very entertaining, but it doesn't explain how they would have gotten the information about where Moses picked up this information. Now, when I look at a cartoon or when I listen to music or anything, I listen to it intently, and I'm trying to get something out of it, because this cartoon was supposed to depict the life of Moses in a more truthful light, and we're trying to get there. But I think the information that Moses may have gotten out of hieroglyphia, or maybe he got it from his mother, or you name it. But I think that was about some of the edicts that were passed down about the Israelites, according to the king of Egypt at that time, who wanted to destroy all the babies. But that was what happened in the cartoon. So please, if you want me to entertain anything, I don't mind it. But I mean, be truthful. Tell me you got it from a cartoon. You know, don't let me have to seek this out myself. But I can appreciate it. I can truly appreciate it. I have a very good sense of humor. But this is a study, and I'm going to pray you got something out of it. But I'm going to close the study of the first chapter. We're going to move into the next chapter on the next session. And I would encourage you to help me to support this ministry, this teaching ministry. Please write me at Bible-Based Bible Study. That's Bible-Based Bible Study. Post Office Box 1839, Madison. That's Mattson, Illinois. Post Office Box 1839, Madison, Illinois, 60443-1839. I look forward to hearing from you. I look forward to entertaining some of your